Wooden base. Hind base. Wooden base. Hind base.
And it gets your face like warmed up.
Super serious.
Where nothing fun or funny ever happens.
This is a super serious thing.
I don't even like dogs.
Super serious.
We're live?
That was fast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Super Serious Dog Podcast. I'm Misha Bielitsky, joined with my co-host, Courtney Cuellar. And today we have Alex, not Shawn, Edwards, joining us all the way from Australia. So welcome, Alex.
Hello, ladies.
Thanks for being here, Alex, not Shawn.
Okay, so I have to explain
Run through that story, get it out of the way right now.
Let's get it out of the way. So last year at conference, I saw Alex sitting at the cocktail bar talking to some of his mates. And I was like, oh, Courtney, let's go say hi to my friend. That's my friend over there. I want to introduce you to him. So I run up to him. I give him a big hug. I slap him on the back. And I'm like, Shawn, this is my friend Courtney. Courtney, this is Shawn. And he goes,
I'm like, hi, Shawn.
And he goes, that's not my name, mate.
And the funniest part about that is it wasn't the first time we'd met, and we'd met in person at conference the year before, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yes.
And I had way too many drinks. And you're confusing me with Shawn Edwards, the Deadpool decoy.
Yep. Yeah.
And we look nothing alike.
The funniest part is I just remember there's only so many ways you can handle that situation, right? When you get so terribly embarrassed, I just busted out laughing because I was like, that's the funniest fucking thing I've done. And it was 5 minutes into conference. And
so one of the first people you introduced me to.
Yeah. And so the entire conference.
And you fuck it up.
Yeah. The entire conference, I'm just like, hey, Misha. Hey, Shawn. And we're just calling each other just by the incorrect names every time we pass each other in the hallway. And it's great.
Just own it. That's all you can do.
Yeah. It's like when a fart slips out and it was obviously you, just be like, yeah, I farted. You jealous?
I know what you're talking about. I'll do such a thing.
I highly doubt that. So, Alex, not Shawn, tell our listeners a little bit about you and kind of what you do and kind of what your bread and butter is for dog training.
Cool. So I'm in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. Bottom right-hand corner of Australia, if you kind of look at a map of the mainland.
Thanks, Americans. Appreciate that.
I really appreciate that.
I've been training professionally for a bit over 15 years now. Started off just with my pet dog, my first dog, went to a club with her, started training with her. And she did really well there. She was a husky named Tipsy. And she just kept progressing through all the classes really quickly, which is kind of weird for my first dog. We ended up getting to the advanced class reasonably quickly. I think she was probably just over a year of age when she was in the advanced class, which is pretty much all off leash. And that club's method was very sort of keeler based, which was my introduction to training, and I'm sort of quite off that path now.
It's pretty impressive for a husky to be off leash at a year old.
Yeah.
Yeah. My old boy Shadow, I've still got now, he was in that advanced class at about 8 months old.
That's awesome.
And that club's been going for close to 40 years now. There's only been 3 dogs ever passed the advanced level, and Tips and Shadow are 2 of them.
Nice.
But I'd basically been training with her, and she kind of got to the point she could do it all. And it's like, well, what do you do from here? And I didn't know about the dog world, what the dog world was at the time. I was 16, 17 years old. And they asked me to become an instructor, and I didn't want to do it because I just wanted to hang out with my dog every week. And it got to the point that they basically were 1 week they were dying for instructors because it was all volunteer based. And they're like, can you please run a class? And I'm like, I don't know how to run a class. And next thing you know, I'm 16 or 17 years old, standing in front of 40 people running a dog training class, having no idea what I'm doing.
Oh, my God. Talk about trial by fire.
Yeah, pretty much. And everyone's like, that's the best class I've ever had. I'm like, that can't be right. I went through the whole class rundown about 6 minutes, just shitting myself. And then it just became the weekly thing, and I would slowly go from running the lower levels to the advanced levels, and then just dealing with the problem dogs coming to the club, the dogs with aggression issues and stuff like that. And long story short, ended up jumping out of what I was doing for a living, and which I used to be a cabinet maker, so building shops, kitchens, all that sort of stuff, and jumped into the dog world to do it for a living and haven't looked back since then. So mainly deal with pet dog training sort of stuff here. I do get a few sport dogs I get to work with and do more precision-y sort of obedience stuff. That is primarily the pet dog obedience, behavioural issues, aggression that I deal with day in, day out now. So they can get pretty interesting days, anything from puppy development to, problem solving, behavioural issues and whatnot. So it's pretty entertaining. It keeps me on my toes, that's for sure.
Yeah. Have you in Australia seen a big influx of puppies since the pandemic started?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I figured.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, crazy money for poorly bred dogs.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then they don't want to spend money on training.
Oh, yeah. I had someone contact me that spent over $35,000 on 3 puppies and then complained to me about having to pay for dog training.
But they had 3 puppies.
You probably need to get priorities right.
Yeah.
Because her idea was to breed them and make her money back.
Oh, okay.
Oh my.
Wow. I had a lady call me once because she wanted to get rid of her. She was a cat person, and she got like a little Maltipoo or something like that. That was being an asshole, as Maltipoos can be, because they're way too smart for that kind of shit, And she was like, well, what if we trained it and then sold it as a fully trained dog? And I was like, lady, you can only do that with like working dogs. And even then, there's not really such thing as a fully trained dog. Fully trained to whom, right? Whose opinion are you going off of? Because fully trained to me is very different than fully trained to you. Yeah. So, people are nuts.
I often explain that, like, to me, your dog's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, no, we lost him.
Oh, you froze.
It's okay.
On how many pieces?
Oh, okay, you're back. You said it's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yes, sorry, ladies. I had someone try and call me.
Rude.
It's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Your dog's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. How many pieces go into the puzzle with just 1, your dog, and 2, what you want to do with the dog? Like, what I want out of my dogs, 2 of my dogs are a breed called a Soplana. One of them, Titan, is my precision dog. Like, he's my obedience dog. Echo literally just roams my property and has to come back when I call her and drop when I tell her to. Outside of that, like, I don't really care what else she does. I've never even taught her how to walk nice on a leash. Just not part of her life. She guards chickens for a living. That's her job. You know what I mean? So to say fully trained, that's not exactly a term that can, to who, and then also genetically, can the dog actually do what you want it to do as a part of that? So
you mean Chihuahuas can't do bite sports?
Oh, yeah, I can.
So you have a bit of a farm,
they
Alex.
just practice in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a bit of a farm. You were telling us in the pre-show that you've got like lamb and llamas, and you had a baby alpaca born recently. You got how much acreage do you have?
Just under 10 acres.
Okay,
nice.
So I'm sort of as north as you can get, have a little bit of land, which is good because it sort of means I can do everything I need to from home. But yeah, we've got alpacas, goats, sheep, chickens, guinea fowl, quail. We did have a bull for a while. That was an interesting experience.
Hold on. Back up. You had a bull. Did you have any other like cows or anything? Like, why'd you get a bull? What possessed you to be like?
I don't know. It was my girlfriend's idea, and it wasn't the world's greatest idea. But we also have heaps of other animals, like the joke of like, oh, you must have kangaroos in your backyard. I literally do.
Yeah.
So we have a just come and go from the property as they want to, kangaroos, wombats, and whatnot. So, and now I've got the 5 dogs as well. So it's a bit of a zoo here.
Have you always wanted like a zoo and to have this many animals and all this acreage, or did you just sort of like fall into acquiring all these critters?
It started basically, I looked at like value, what you could buy. Where I grew up, it's $1 million for a subdivided block with nothing on it. Like, it's absurd how expensive it is. And I was like, you know what, I can't afford that. So moving out and getting a little bit of land so I could run the dogs and work from home and all that sort of stuff just was the sort of progression I went down that line of. And well, you need something to keep the grass down, so better get some, animals to do that. And that just sort of snowballed a little bit. But it is a little bit crazy having so many animals.
Sounds fun. Sounds like my dream.
Yeah.
It can be. Yeah. I've goofed around with some of them training to do things like the alpacas will recall on a whistle, the sheep will recall.
Nice.
One of my goats will do place. I started teaching how to balance the ball on her nose and just stupid shit. Like,
That's
she's just kind
awesome.
of fun. I really like that goat. Yeah.
What's her name?
But yeah, Mikey.
Mikey. That's cute.
It's the worst
Mikey.
female name ever, but she's got a white face and looks like Mike Myers from Halloween. I'm like, done, Mikey.
Nice.
Hey man, we can make
yeah.
any name gender neutral. It doesn't have to be
She's
status
a
quo,
goat.
you know?
That's it.
I'm pretty sure she'd
Stop
be fine
judging my
with it.
goat's gender.
Yeah, how does she identify? though?
How's things over there with you ladies since I saw you last in Colorado?
Fucking weird, man.
Weird. It's
Mostly
been a
weird.
Yeah.
year. That's a really good word to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been good but
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
We both changed our businesses quite a bit. Like I was just developing mine when COVID hit, and I was a little bit glad it happened
Yeah.
because it sort of forced me into things. Like I was only doing primarily day training and private lessons, but it sort of forced me into a board and train because I didn't want to lose this client that was like
Yeah.
literally going to start the week of lockdown. So I was like, why don't you just pay me
Yeah.
the same amount that you already paid me? But instead, I'll keep your dog for the same amount of time, but they don't come home in the evenings. They stay with me. And now I do
Yeah.
board and trains. And that was something I always
Yeah.
really wanted to keep separate. Just when I wasn't working for myself, I really needed boundaries at my previous job. And that was a boundary that I upheld because I already had to work a lot and I didn't want to also work when I came back home, you know? And also,
Yeah.
like having other people's dogs in your house is fucking stressful, especially if your dogs aren't like the
Yeah.
most social, right? They're not pro-social, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
was
the training board thing's super popular over there. It does happen in Australia. It's just not nearly as common.
Yeah.
Where it seems to be like people's full-time business there.
Yep.
oh yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, that's what my business turned into, and
Yeah.
I had no plan for that to happen. Or it wasn't in my plans for that to happen. I was running a hiking business with no board and trains, where I just picked up people's dogs every day and took them hiking, and that was my job. And I did
Yeah.
a couple of private lessons and stuff, but then pandemic, and I don't want to go into people's house, and I was like, and then people called me and were like, I need a board and train. I'm working from home now and my dogs are crazy. And so that just kind of filled up my whole calendar. And now we're all the way to the end of the year. And I'm like, holy shit, wow, this year's been weird.
It's been weird, but it's gone quick. That's the thing
Yeah.
that's kind of been a bit surprising to me. It's like
Yeah.
it's already Christmas. Like, how the hell has that happened?
Yeah. That's pretty nuts, man. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So you said people don't really do board and trains. What is like day train much more popular there? Is like if a client needs more help,
People
or is
don't
it
even
just
really do that too much.
really just straight up private lessons and
Most
stuff like
people,
that?
private and group tend to be the biggest sort of
Interesting.
two options everyone goes down here. The training boards, like I used to do them, and I just never felt that they held up. I sort of fell out of love with them because I didn't like seeing the result continue on. A lot of people think that if you do it, then you never have to do anything afterwards. And
Yeah.
as we know, it's the day in, day out of, the little 1%ers and watching them and reinforcing what you want that just falls
Yeah.
off the wayside, and then the dogs go back to basically what they're doing. So
Right.
Yeah.
they do happen here, but they're just not nearly as common as they are in the States.
Yeah. I've done a lot of board and trains that are like working through separation anxiety, right? Like that is something really difficult
Yeah.
for owners to do, especially when their day job requires their attention elsewhere and they have to go somewhere else and they can't be as consistent. That's where I've seen probably the best long-term implications. Same thing with like a good owner who follows through afterwards if they have like a nervous dog. But again, it's that follow through component. And you're right that a lot of people have that mentality like, oh, board and train will just fix everything and I'm done. And I'm like, well, if you keep paying me like several times a year, we can just maintain it like this.
Yeah,
I'll take your dog.
can come back to me
Yeah.
every 3 months for a little while. Sure, we can do
Yeah.
that. Because then
Yeah.
it will stick. Absolutely. It's some parts of it will.
I think the hardest part of it too is no one wants to be living without their dog, so their dog
Right.
will be gone, and they're like, "Can it be fixed in a week?" And it's like by the time dogs settle in, we're just starting in a
Right.
week. You know what I mean? It's not a magical straight off the bat like the dog's going to be wave your wand and the dog's a different dog and it can go home that day. It's a process that you got to go through.
Yeah.
So,
So you do a lot of behavior modification, you said. What kinds of issues do you commonly run into over there?
So a lot of the time, because I'm a little bit regional, I'll get quite a lot of random stuff that'll come my way compared to a lot of the other trainers here. So dogs going after livestock and stuff like that, I'll see a fair bit of. But a lot of the reactivity, aggression stuff on leash. And then, that's kind of everywhere in the world. I don't think it's too exclusive.
No, not at all.
But I get a lot of that sort of stuff where the dogs have issues with dogs, just in general, and a lot of fear-based stuff. And that's going to be the backwash of this COVID stuff, poorly exposed, poorly socialized dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Or dogs that have been to the dog park to learn how to socialize.
Question. What is your approach to dogs that have issues with livestock? Just curious, because that's not an issue I deal with. I don't deal with people who have livestock, but I've always kind of wondered how I would approach that if that were something I dealt with. So any tips?
It really depends on the dog. A lot of the time when I see a lot of really...
I could have called that. Sorry.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
I see a lot of super frustrated dogs that just don't have outlets.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's not predatory behavior those dogs are showing. So, I introduce a flirt pole and the dogs like a duck to water with it. Getting the dog into playing tug and some toy play to give it away to get rid of all that sort of pent up energy. I will see ones that are predatory towards other stock and stuff like that. But depending on where you are, we're not gun crazy in Australia like you Americans. But the shots fired. Depending on where you are, they like if you had someone's dog go on your property, they are allowed to shoot that's going after your livestock. So it's a very high risk thing for dogs to practice.
Yeah. When a dog is predatory towards livestock, do you handle that any differently, or is it the same as like working through aggressive dogs and exposure and practice and control?
Yeah, most of the dogs you see with aggression aren't predatory with it. You will see the stalking behavior, but it's quite different looking when they're sort of going after, the neighbour's sheep or something like that. So obviously management's a part of it. And it is a time that quite often I'll say to those people, like, you really need to up your obedience to be bomb-proof. And then we're talking more about e-collars and proper use of them. Yeah. Because essentially they don't want to have their dog confined to being on a lead all the time. If you live on a fair bit of land, you want to be able to have it where you can have your dog off and still have control. So proper use of an e-collar is super important for those dogs that want to do it. But some owners just go, it's going to be too hard and it's not the right dog for me in that situation. I support that because a lot of the dogs are super friendly and social. They can be rehomed as long as they have an outlet and, general day-to-day life structure and boundaries.
Yeah, and not necessarily be tempted constantly by that livestock. That's always going to be there.
Yeah, well, that's it. If you live in a suburban area, you're not going to have issues with like sheep walking up to your fence on every day. So.
Well, in Austin, everybody has chickens. It seems like so. It depends. It depends on what neighborhood you're in. So you said you do. You started out in like keeler. How has your training evolved since starting from keeler, and kind of do you have like a school of thought you subscribe to, or are you kind of just like whatever works, man? That's not being an asshole to the dog.
Yeah, I work off the dogs in front of me. A lot of the stuff that I've sort of gone down the line of is a lot more down the Michael Ellis line of things. So I've stolen a lot of sport trainers.
Cool.
I looked at Michael, Ivan, Bart, those kind of guys, and what did they do differently to get their dogs to work like that? And I think one thing that a lot of pet dog trainers overlook is, the things that make sport training what it is, the precision, the timing, the motivation, and getting the dogs to work and giving them the outlets in that sense. And I try and use a lot of food and toy play-based stuff in my training now. It was a very poor version of keeler that was taught at the time. But I try to use a lot of food and a lot more motivation and trying to build better engagement between the owner and the dog, get a better relationship so everything flows pretty well.
Yeah, building the dog up instead of pushing it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So and that's the hard thing. Whenever someone calls you to go help them with their dog, it's because they want you to stop something and you want to teach the dog something as a trainer to make that work.
Yeah.
But I've spent quite a lot of time with Michael Ellis, a lot of time with Josh Moran as well. So those two guys are kind of in the middle of that sort of styles of things.
That's cool.
I also had it when I would look around at all the dogs, and what the method of keeler we were being taught at the time is all the dogs hated their owners. Like, it was a crappy deal to be out to train with. Like, my time that I get away from working dogs has been with my dogs, and I want to enjoy it and have fun with them. And I don't like watching dogs walk around shut down, suppressed, not enjoying what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've sort of been a few of the bigger influences in sort of the styles of training I go down now.
Yeah. Do you think keeler method has evolved a lot? Because I saw Linda Kame present recently, and a lot of dogs that I saw weren't as shut down, but it definitely was like putting a lot of responsibility on the dogs to be attentive and that kind of thing.
Dog training has changed a ton. Like in the time I've been in it, it's almost done a 180 on where it was. I think everyone sort of takes their own little snippet from it. Like, if you're going to a lot of seminars, you're going to ISCP and stuff like that, you're going to see different people present. You're going to take little bits off everyone. Now, we could all go to the same seminar and take something completely different out of it.
Right.
And then you just throw it in your toolbox and you'll use it differently. So I think it's definitely evolved a lot. But in saying that, the method of keeler and then going through and reading the books doesn't look remotely the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
but yeah, everyone has their own interpretations.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really fun. So one of the other things that you do that I think is really awesome, and we're probably going to definitely do a much deeper dive on the Patreon episode. Hey, listeners, if you're deciding whether you should subscribe or not. So you do large field social stuff, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. And I think you said you're the only person in Australia that does that? That you know
I don't know of anyone else that does it. Yeah, I know there's a couple of like farm stay sort of places which do like a daycare version of it, but not people that will run large volumes of dogs, and particularly dogs that have had issues with other dogs as a way to socialize them and get them out. So that side of things, it's you'll have your day. We've got quite a lot of daycares and they're popping up more and more here, but in terms of like outdoor large field social, it's not I don't know anyone else in the country that's doing it.
Yeah. Would you say it's pretty similar to what Jason Vascones looks like from the last time you saw it, or have you modified it somehow?
Yeah. So I'd already been running socials for, I think, 4 or 5 years before I went over to Texas and did some stuff with Jason.
Cool.
Jason's is a larger scale than what I do it on, just because he's got a larger bit of land that he can do it on.
How many dogs do you typically have?
Most weeks would generally be... Depends on the availability of everyone to come, but you'd normally be looking about 50 dogs. Okay. And then when we have larger weeks, you can have up, 80 or so.
Yeah. That's pretty close.
So there's a lot of similar rules that like I'll have in terms of what Jason does, in terms of I won't socialize big dogs and little dogs together.
Yeah.
The risk factor.
Yeah.
And I want to screen all the dogs and know them all when I come in, particularly for the dogs that we're trying to build back up to get them around dogs. I need to sort of know how far I can let things go. So like my little husky Coda is the class clown when it comes to socials, and she's a dog I can know. I want to know the dog, how far I can let her go with it, or the other dogs. Like Coda's really good at sort of teaching dogs how to play, bouncing around, flirting with them. But there's some dogs that just wouldn't be cool with that. So, or that I need to let Coda just work through it, and the dog will get up and start running and playing and relax and settle. So I just like to know the dogs that I have in there. And the socials here end up becoming a bit like a rolling mothers club because everyone knows everyone in them, and everyone's there for the right reasons. So it's good.
That's cool. Awesome.
Whenever you how do you screen your clients? So what is like knowing the dog pretty well mean? Like, have you done a bunch of lessons? Do they stay with you, or like, what does that look like?
Yes. So every dog will have to do an assessment to begin with, which is generally a private session, and we go through and clean up, little things we need to do. They'll do an assessment with one of my dogs and just make sure that, they can make good decisions. So whether that's just them being able to, walk past another dog walking down the street without
losing it. Oh no, we lost him.
Oh no.
Losing their marbles and jumping.
There you go.
We
lost you for like a split second. Yeah.
Sorry. Basically just the dogs have some basic leash manners and stuff like that. The socials aren't a place for strict obedience.
Right.
But I want to be able to know that I can have that dog walk past another dog and it knows its options and can make better decisions if it doesn't like the dog it's walking past.
Right.
And I find that way it's sort of, when everyone comes in, the owners are a lot more comfortable and relaxed, not bunching up leashes and stuff like that, creating issues just when the dogs get in there and settle down. And then I also don't really have a race on dogs have to be off lead the very first time they come.
Okay.
It's more about the dog leaving, feeling better than how they came.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the dogs, the first time you're going to put them around 50 dogs is rather stressful.
Yeah.
So making sure that they feel comfortable and relaxed is super important.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have a group of class clowns in there that keep each other entertained pretty well. So I'm pretty good at pairing up the dogs as I let them off. That, you know, those 3 dogs will run and keep each other entertained instead of just letting one dog run off and get in everyone else's face.
Yeah.
And be a bit of a pain in the butt.
How big of a space is like the area where you do your social? An acre or 2?
You guys are feet.
You can use
a couple
meters.
basketball courts.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a couple basketball courts kind of size. I just made my COVID lockdown project was just doing another training ground at my place. I've got a semi-indoor area as well now.
Oh, nice.
It's not quite as big, but if the weather was pretty crap, we can go down there and train. So it's good.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's fun.
Besides Jason in Texas, do you have many other people that sort of do it over there? I know Chad does it and Tyler does it.
Chad's in Chicago now.
Onto it.
Chad's in Chicago, and he has been for a while. There's a guy, Sam, here in Austin. Gotcha. Yeah, there's quite a few. Kevin Lee, he's been on the show once or twice before.
I saw Kevin at the start of the year. We had a chat about it.
Yeah. That's cool.
There's a handful of people up in Dallas that do them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. They're becoming more popular, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think it helps that Jason's been doing seminars and stuff and spreading the good word.
Yeah, because him and Heather have done quite a few together as well.
Yeah. And Heather definitely is a big push for it. I mean, that woman is a hell of a business person. Like, let me fucking tell you.
Yeah.
So I know she's definitely advertising that and you know, being a proponent, which is awesome. It's really awesome.
She hoards animals as well.
Yeah, and she's got her Campbell farm and shit. We should get her on the show sometime. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, and bulls.
Josh too.
Yeah, the Longhorns. Yeah.
Dude, I would love to be her kids. I would love to just be like, you know what? I'm going to shrink myself down and just go live with Heather.
Adopt me. Adopt me.
He'd probably be like, there's a fee for that.
I bring 5 dogs. Maybe that'll sell her.
Maybe.
Those rookie numbers.
Yeah. So, okay, if you had to count, how many animals do you have on your property right now?
Oh, God. Over 100 with these without even trying.
Really?
Wow.
Holy shit, man. I mean, chickens don't take up a lot of space. Yeah, like I could see that.
Yeah.
It does get up there quick.
Yeah.
If they ever let us foreigners into Australia again, you have to come visit your farm, man. See your socials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Australia. That's the thing I'm waiting for when they open up the borders and we can travel again.
Yeah.
How that's all going to work.
That is the question. How it all will work.
America will fuck it up. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Don't worry, everybody. We will screw it up for the rest of the class.
Then everybody's going to have to jog 10 extra laps.
Yep.
Yeah. Because like what we see on the news here is never really a good reflection of what it's like in America.
Yeah.
Because we only hear what they want us basically to hear. But how many cases are you guys sort of having at the moment?
We're kind of exploding right now. I honestly stopped looking for a little bit.
Yeah.
The last time I checked was like last week, and we had like about 400 new cases in Austin. And hospitalizations, I don't remember the exact number. It was proportionally rising with the rise in cases, but like this point with like Thanksgiving and all that kind of shit, I just assumed things would get worse since we were already in the midst of a spike. And there's other areas that are far worse.
Yeah.
At our worst in Austin, we peaked at like 500 or 600 cases or something like that
in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It never
So
got too bad here though.
I think we had mid 700s a day. And then we went into lockdown, and now we haven't had a case or a death for, I think it's almost 2 months now.
That's amazing. Are
So
masks
we're pretty
required?
much back to normal. They were. Now they're fading out, so you don't need to wear them outdoors. You don't need to wear them into buildings that don't have huge volumes of people. But if you were to go to a supermarket or something, you have to wear it still. So, but it's all moving in the right direction, fading back. So.
That's interesting.
That's for Victoria. I'm not sure about the rest of Australia. I think there's a couple cases that pop up here and there, but they're pretty quickly controlled. And it's always just coming back from people coming back from overseas.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the tricky thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Unless you want to just, keep Australia as like a quarantined island forever. That doesn't sound fun, though. Sounds awful.
Good. Just let me out when I want to leave. Let me back in when I want to come back.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. If you guys want to hear us continue on the conversation about open field social, we'll probably get into some nose work and scent detection stuff. Check out our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/superseriousdogpodcast. And oh shit, Shawn, Alex, you should, I almost called you Shawn again.
You did call him Shawn again.
Alex, you should plug your shit.
Plug your shit.
If you want to plug anything. Any online programs or anything?
So my business is called, Refine Your Canine Dog Training. Facebook and Instagram. Easiest ways to sort of keep up into the loop of what I'm doing. And that's the easiest way probably to get a hold of me. If you're in Melbourne and you want to do some training. And then any seminars I'm hosting or running pretty much get put up on there as well.
Sweet.
Refine Your Canine Dog Training.
Do you do any online consultations?
I still do online consults. Now that I'm sort of out and about, people want me in person more than I can, but I have one tomorrow night that I've got to do with someone in Whistler, so they still happen.
Yeah.
Just for people that I can't get to.
Hit them up.
So,
Hit them up. By the way, I still use your clicker all the time that you gave me.
Hell yeah, you do.
I'm like, this is the one I'm not giving away to clients. Cause like Adrian gave me a shitload of hers. I'm like, whatever, just pass those out. What do I need 30 clickers for? You know what I mean? All right.
You'll
Well,
lose
that's
them. That's why you need them.
That's true. They turn up eventually. All right. That's it for this episode. Go check us out on Patreon if you want to hear us continue the conversation, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
See ya.